All right, Canucks fans, let's just take a deep breath and talk about the goaltending. Because right now, if you look at the Vancouver crease situation, you might feel like you're watching a three-ring circus. Seriously, how do we get here? 3 NHL-caliber goalies under contract, heading into next season, and a decision looming that feels less like a choice and more like an inevitability. It's a logjam, a bottleneck, a situation that absolutely has to be resolved this offseason. And while it might sound crazy, the most realistic solution, the player the Canucks might be best positioned to move, is Thatcher Demko. Yeah, I know, Thatcher Demko, our undisputed starter. The guy who's stolen games for us, the backbone of the team when he's healthy. The thought of trading him might feel like hockey heresy to some of you. But when you look at the landscape, when you crunch the numbers, when you consider the contracts and the team's needs, it's becoming increasingly clear that Demko could be the odd man out in this goaltending trio. Perhaps, more accurately, he's the one player they can realistically trade to address other needs and bring some clarity to the crease. Let's break it down. The Vancouver Canucks are currently carrying 3 goaltenders capable of playing in the NHL. Thatcher Demko, Arturs Silovs, and the newly signed Kevin Lankinen. Having depth is great, absolutely. But having 3 goalies with significant roles or cap hits is simply not sustainable, financially or structurally, for a team trying to compete and manage the salary cap. Something has to give. So, let's focus on Thatcher Demko, who is arguably the central figure in this whole situation. Demko, who will be 29 years old when next season starts, is entering the final year of his current contract. He carries a very reasonable $5 million cap hit for the 2025-26 season. Crucially, for trade purposes, he currently has no trade protection in that final year. That's a key detail. Now, there's a possibility of an extension. Rick Dhaliwal has reported that he's not sure if formal extension talks have begun between the Canucks and Demko's camp. However, there's a belief that the team might be looking at a new deal around a 3-year term. Here's where the potential conflict arises. If Demko, entering what could be his last big contract, is looking for a longer term or a higher annual value than the Canucks are comfortable committing to, especially given his recent injury history, well, that's when the trade scenario becomes not just possible, but likely. If the two sides can't find common ground on an extension that works for both, he could absolutely be shopped. We also have to talk about the elephant in the room, Demko's health. While he's an incredibly talented goaltender, he's dealt with injuries over the past couple of seasons that have impacted his availability. These ongoing concerns add an element of risk and uncertainty to committing long-term, big money to him. However, according to David Pagnotta of the Fourth Period, Demko is reportedly healthy and already training hard this summer. That's great news for him and potentially for his trade value. But the Canucks front office, led by Jim Rutherford and Patrick Allvin, are clearly evaluating all options, including the possibility of moving their starting netminder. So why Demko? Why is he the most realistic option to be traded out of the 3 goalies? Let's look at the other 2. First, Kevin Lankinen. The Canucks just signed him to a 3-year deal with a $4.5 million cap hit. That's a significant commitment to a goaltender who is likely projected to be part of a tandem, perhaps even pushing for starts. But here's the kicker. Lankinen has a no-move clause in the first 2 years of his contract and trade protection in the final 3 years. Moving Lankinen, especially early in that deal, would be incredibly difficult, if not impossible, due to that no-move clause. The Canucks have essentially locked themselves into Lankinen for at least the next couple of seasons. Then there's Arturs Silovs. He's the youngest of the group, showed flashes of brilliance, particularly in the playoffs when Demko was injured, and he's on an incredibly cap-friendly deal at just $850,000. Silovs represents the future, a cost-controlled asset with upside. His future with the team is likely tied to what happens with Demko. If Demko is traded, Silovs probably steps into a full-time tandem role with Lankinen. If Demko stays and signs a big extension, Silovs might be the one who eventually gets squeezed out or remains a clear backup. But right now, his value to the team, both on the ice and against the cap, makes him highly unlikely to be traded unless it's part of a larger, blockbuster deal. This brings us back to Demko. The Canucks have committed $4.5 million to Lankinen. If they were to extend Demko, especially if he's looking for north of $6 or $7 million per year on a long-term deal, and you still have Silovs at $850K, you're looking at a significant chunk of your salary cap tied up in goaltending. Rick Dhaliwal highlighted this financial aspect, asking rhetorically, when was the last time they paid $11 million for two goalies? He's right. Carrying two goalies with cap hits totaling $10+ million is a heavy burden for most teams, especially one like the Canucks who need to re-sign key players and add offensive help. This financial reality, combined with Demko's expiring contract and lack of trade protection, makes him the most expendable piece in the sense that he's the one they can move to gain cap flexibility and assets. He is, paradoxically, also their most valuable trade chip. Now, if the Canucks do decide to explore trading Thatcher Demko, there is absolutely, unequivocally, going to be a market for him. David Pagnotta noted this, adding that Demko is arguably the top goaltender potentially available this offseason. Teams across the league are constantly reassessing their goaltending situations, looking for stability, looking for a difference maker. A 29-year-old goalie with Demko's track record performance when healthy, even with the injury concerns, is a highly sought-after asset. Trading Demko now, with 1 year left on a reasonable contract before he potentially hits unrestricted free agency seeking a big payday, is when the Canucks could maximize their return. What could that return look like? Given the need for quality goaltending around the league, the Canucks could potentially command a significant package. We're talking about potential first-round picks, high-end prospects, or even a roster player who addresses another area of need, like that offensive firepower the team is reportedly looking to add. With UFA winger Brock Boeser's future also uncertain, potentially losing his scoring punch, acquiring an impact forward via a Demko trade could be a strategic move to mitigate that loss and rebalance the roster. So, while extending Demko remains a path forward, especially if they can agree on a team-friendly term and dollar amount like that rumored 3-year deal, the increasing financial commitment to Lankinen, Silovs' emergence and cheap contract, and Demko's expiring deal with no trade protection make a trade the most realistic scenario, particularly if extension talks hit a snag come July. The Canucks know they can't easily move Lankinen due to protection. Silovs is too valuable on his current deal, leaving Demko as a clear, albeit difficult, candidate to be moved to solve the logjam and acquire assets. This is a pivotal offseason for the Vancouver Canucks. How they handle this goaltending situation will have ripple effects throughout the roster and for years to come. Moving a player like Thatcher Demko is not a decision made lightly, but the circumstances surrounding the crease right now seem to be pointing in that direction. So, Canucks Nation, what's your gut feeling? Do you think the Canucks should trade Thatcher Demko to capitalize on his value and clear the logjam? Or do you believe they need to find a way to extend him and figure out the goalie situation another way? Let me know your thoughts, your preferred outcome, and why in the comments section below. This is a huge decision, and I want to hear what the fans are thinking. Resolving this goaltending situation is absolutely critical for the Canucks heading into next season. Whether it's an extension or a trade, a move is coming. We'll be tracking every single development right here. If you found this breakdown helpful and you want to stay ahead of the curve on all things Canucks this offseason, please do me a massive favor and hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow and reach more passionate fans like you. Keep it locked right here for all the latest news, rumors, and analysis as the Vancouver Canucks navigate this fascinating and crucial offseason. You won't want to miss a thing.